My dad financed my brother's engineer school education with $210,000, but he declined to invest in my business venture. Now, they're asking for financial help, claiming my brother's life is at risk. Let me give you some background to better understand our family dynamics. I'm 17 years old and come from a challenging family environment. My parents divorced during my middle school years after my dad had an affair with his secretary. Though I only discovered the affair later, I had always sensed tension between my parents, unlike the harmony I saw in other families. I also have an older brother, John, who's 27. Unfortunately, our troubled family life didn't bring us closer. Instead, John often bullied me. Despite our mother's attempts to defend me, my father invariably sided with John, pushing the narrative that roughhousing was essential for becoming a real man. This situation left me longing for peace rather than conflict. Our mother was primarily a home cleaner, busy with household responsibilities and unable to constantly shield me from the conflicts at home. As I grew, I gradually learned to cope with the family dynamics instead of resisting or complaining. The culmination of these issues was when my mom decided to leave my dad when I was in 8th grade. At the time, she didn't reveal the specific reasons for their separation, leading me to believe it stemmed from my dad's unpleasant demeanor. It wasn't until high school that I learned the true reason from discovered text messages, the affair. Fast forward to the present, and the situation has escalated. My dad and brother, having previously rejected my requests for financial support for my own shoe business, are now seeking financial help from me, citing a dire situation concerning my brother's safety. This twist in our family story adds another layer of complexity to our already strained relationships. Growing up, I learned about the strains in my parents' marriage that shaped much of my childhood and their decisions. During a deep conversation, my mom revealed some painful truths. She discovered messages on my dad's phone from his secretary, which was the breaking point for her after enduring many challenges, including his infidelity. She confided in me that my dad had initially not wanted a second child. Despite the financial strain they were already facing with one child and his fledgling business, my mom stood firm against aborting the pregnancy. She was determined to have me, even if it meant risking her marriage. Before I was born, my mom was working, but she proposed to continue working and borrow money from her father to support us until my dad's business stabilized. My dad, however, was opposed to taking financial help from his father-in-law. He insisted that if they were to have a second child, my mom would need to quit her job and stay at home, hoping she would choose otherwise and end the pregnancy. As I grew up, the unresolved tensions between my parents affected our family dynamics deeply. My dad's resentment towards me was evident, and it hurt both my mother and me. My mom admitted that their inability to handle their issues contributed to the negativity at home. She regretted not leaving earlier, fearing the impact it might have on us, which ironically only prolonged the harm. The eventual discovery of my dad's affair was too much for my mom, and they divorced when I was in middle school. Custody arrangements were made where I would spend weekends with my dad, and my brother would stay with our mom. I was clear about not wanting to be around my dad and my brother at the same time, as it would have been too much for me to handle. Reflecting on all this, I realized that my mom, despite her best intentions, might have waited too long to share these truths with me, only opening up during my last year of high school. I love my mom dearly and understand the complexity of her choices. However, I believe things might have been different if she had been more forthcoming earlier. As for my relationship with my dad, it remains strained, marred by the past and his actions that have left a lasting impact on our lives. Growing up in my family was uniquely challenging. My father had traditional views about family, believing it was essential for me to develop a close relationship with my brother. However, I found it difficult to connect with him, as we were very different. Fortunately, my mother understood my feelings and arranged for me to spend minimal time with my father and brother. I was primarily raised by her, which shaped most of my childhood experiences. Despite the separation, we still came together for holidays, which were invariably strained. After my parents divorced, my brother began a relationship with his secretary, which my mother couldn't tolerate. Although he wisely never brought her to our holiday gatherings, the knowledge of their relationship lingered and created tension. My mother, having already distanced herself and me from my father and brother, felt obliged to maintain these holiday meetings as a minimal effort to preserve some sense of family unity. On the surface, we made an effort to get along, but beneath that, there was a genuine disconnect. Each of us gravitated towards the parent we preferred, highlighting the deep divisions within our family. As I grew older, I stayed in contact with my father, especially after learning he would finance my college education. This necessity forced me to maintain a good relationship with him, despite past difficulties. My mother, who only began working after the divorce, couldn't afford the college tuition on her own. Unfortunately, it turned out there was no college fund, and my father's attitude towards me hadn't improved. This realization came just as I was about to graduate high school. Around that time, inspired by a casual conversation, a few friends and I decided to start our own business instead of pursuing further education. We were young, only 16, with little experience, but plenty of passion. We saw it as a leap of faith, but were excited about our idea to launch a clothing and accessories line. We aimed to bring something new to the market, targeting how teenagers wanted to express themselves through fashion, which we felt was overlooked by both large corporations and local businesses in our area. This decision marked a significant turning point, where I took control of my future, stepping away from the family tensions and into a new chapter driven by creativity and entrepreneurship. My friends and I struggled to find clothing that truly reflected who we are. We were stuck between outdated thrift store finds and outfits that made us look like we raided our dad's closets. Although we laughed about it initially, we realized that many others our age probably felt the same frustration. This realization sparked the idea for our brand. I'm proud to share that our brand has grown significantly since its inception. I chose to dive into this venture straight out of high school, skipping college, and considering our success, I have no regrets. The journey began with me and 4 friends. After months of brainstorming, we devised a business plan. 2 of us took on the design side. Fortunately, we already had a knack for art and a passion for fashion. The other 2 managed the business operations. Finding investors was a daunting task. We were a group of 17-year-olds with no formal education in fashion or business, just pure passion and determination. For weeks, I kept our plan secret, but eventually, I confided in my mother. She was hesitant at first and suggested I pursue a degree. However, she supported me after seeing my commitment. The biggest challenge was my father. He had reservations about me entering a field he viewed as non-traditional for men. When I finally approached him about using my college fund to finance our business, he was surprisingly indifferent. He didn't object to me foregoing college as long as I was pursuing what I truly wanted. Most investors outright rejected us, not even granting a meeting, due to our lack of experience and qualifications. It became clear that only friends and family would take a chance on us. After persistent efforts and a lot of convincing, our families agreed to invest in our vision. For months before I was to graduate high school, my friends had secured their family support, but I knew convincing my dad would be the most challenging. I explained that we were serious about our brand, and that was where I wanted to invest my college fund. To my relief, he agreed. Our journey from struggling to express our true selves through fashion to creating a successful brand has been incredible. It's a testament to the power of belief and the importance of pursuing one's passion against all odds. When I approached my dad about needing funds from my supposed college fund to start my own business, he shockingly revealed that he had no money set aside for me. He confessed, quite bluntly, that he didn't particularly care about my endeavors. It was then that I discovered the harsh truth. I had never had a college fund. All the money that was meant to be shared had been spent on my brother's engineer school education. My brother had started his education 4 years prior, and although I was aware of the costly nature of his studies, I assumed that my father's successful business would comfortably cover both of our educational pursuits. What I hadn't realized was the extent to which my brother not only used the funds for his education but also to finance a lavish lifestyle under the guise of studying. My father, ever supportive of him, had even gone as far as giving him a check for nearly $210,000, which was essentially his entire life savings, at the time my brother left for engineer school. From then on, my father lived solely off his salary and seemed content with his financial sacrifices. Moreover, my father had assumed I wouldn't pursue higher education, a belief rooted in a stark bias, as he saw my brother as the more academically gifted one. He had no expectations for me attending college, much less succeeding, which is why he never saved anything on my behalf nor discussed the matter with me. On the day of this revelation, he plainly stated that he had never thought someone as unintelligent as me would consider college or be accepted if I applied. His expectations had been met when I chose to start a business instead. I was devastated. Not only was there no financial support for me, but I was also disparaged and underestimated by my own father. This realization led to a fiery confrontation where I expressed all my pent-up frustration and disappointment. I had hoped he would at least offer minimal support for my business venture, which I planned to repay once profitable. However, his complete disregard for my aspirations and his overt favoritism towards my brother was too much to bear. This explosive argument marked the end of our relationship. All that needed to be said was laid out during that fight, and there was nothing left to discuss. I decided to cut ties permanently, realizing he had no interest in my life unless it mirrored my brother's path. The decision was painful, yet it was necessary for me to move forward on my own terms. Subsequently, I decided to live with my mom, which was a tough choice as it meant disappointing my friends by informing them that my dad would not be funding our startup. Thankfully, they were understanding. My mom stepped in to support me financially, contributing some of her own funds and even borrowing from my grandparents. I had initially resisted asking them for help because I wanted them to save for potential engineer emergencies, given their age. However, they were eager to invest and mentor me, confident in my potential. Their decision paid off as our brand has become incredibly successful, especially popular among teenagers. The journey was challenging, but our hard work has brought us a long way, and I believe our brand has even surpassed my father's business in success, which must have been hard for him to accept. Fast forward to 5 weeks ago, after 4 years of silence, my dad reached out. The call started with congratulations on my business success, which I hoped would lead to an acknowledgement of his past mistakes. Instead, he revealed he needed my help because my brother John was in serious trouble. John, having recently completed his residency, had fallen into gambling debt, owing a significant sum to some dangerous people. He had returned home to lay low with my dad, but that alone wouldn't solve his problems. My dad, now relying solely on his salary, asked me for financial assistance to clear John's debts and start anew. There was no apology for our strained past, just an expectation of support due to my business doing well. This presumption, without any show of remorse, infuriated me. I sternly refused and ended the call, subsequently blocking his number. Calls from an unknown number followed, likely from John, which I also blocked to cut off any further attempts to reach me. It's been 3 weeks, and despite being confident in my decision, I can't shake off a lingering sense of guilt. I feel conflicted about not helping despite having the means to do so. Since I stopped communicating with my family, I've been wrestling with mixed feelings about possibly helping them, despite not being sure if they truly deserve my support. This dilemma stems from a long-standing family conflict, initiated when my dad chose not to invest in my business, opting instead to use his savings for my brother. This decision has left me feeling conflicted and uncertain about how to proceed, rather than making a hasty decision driven by emotion. During this period of reflection, I had avoided discussing the issue with my mother to spare her any stress. Historically, she had distanced herself from my dad and brother at the same time I did, though she remains concerned for my brother, as any mother would be. When I finally opened up to her about my brother's debt and the family dynamics, she advised me against intervening. She pointed out that my father and brother had never supported me, nor apologized for their long-standing mistreatment. Her perspective was clear. They had created their predicament, and it was theirs to resolve. This resonated with me, although I remained undecided about my next steps. My findings were unexpected. I discovered they had sold their house weeks ago, seemingly alleviating any immediate financial crisis. This revelation came from neighbors, not directly from my family, which added to my skepticism about their honesty and their intentions in reaching out to me for financial help. This situation has reinforced the importance of setting boundaries and prioritizing my own financial security. While the idea of family obligation weighs on me, the reality of their actions and my mother's advice has given me a lot to consider. I'm leaning towards focusing on my own life and well-being, recognizing that helping a family that hasn't supported me might not be my responsibility. The house that my father sold 5 weeks ago was in a highly desirable area and had fetched a significant sum of money. By the time he contacted me, he had already received the payment. It puzzled me why he was asking me for money as well, given his recent windfall. The situation remained unclear until I got a call from his lawyer this morning, revealing that I was being excluded from my father's will. It turns out there was no real financial distress. My father was merely testing my loyalty to see if I would support them. Based on my response, he would decide whether to include me in his inheritance. My father had sold the house as part of his plans to move in with my brother John, who had just completed his engineer residency. Before relocating, he decided to test my willingness to help them financially. I was shocked and disappointed by this manipulative tactic. Frankly, I'm relieved to have failed such a test. I've realized that I don't need his money. Despite the emotional turmoil of the past few weeks, I am content knowing that my own business is thriving well enough that I won't need to depend on any inheritance. This experience has left me with a deep sense of disillusionment towards my father and brother, whose actions I find both insensitive and irrational. It's clear they haven't changed and still believe the world revolves around them. Thankfully, I no longer have to concern myself with their antics. On a brighter note, almost a year after these events, I'm thrilled to share that I am engaged. I reconnected last year with a childhood friend who had moved away for some time. We started dating immediately, realizing we didn't want to waste another moment apart. While I'd love to dwell on the joy of our engagement, there's a twist concerning my father and brother's reaction to the news. Despite expressing their happiness, they've decided not to attend the wedding, stating it would be inappropriate given our strained relationship. Ironically, they weren't even invited, but their assumption and subsequent refusal have provided a good laugh for me, my fiancé, and our friends. It seems they still haven't changed, but at least their predictable behavior provides some entertainment.